Many of the people that we interview on this podcast had a single moment in their life when they realised that hiking was their thing, something that would define them and be a major part of what they choose to do for the foreseeable future. Many, myself included, have realised this while on a major through hike or a hiking trip at a pivotal moment in their life, like, I don't know, a major global pandemic. I love hearing stories from people who not only discover a deep passion for something, but use that same passion to invite others to enjoy it as well. One such person is today's guest, Tory. And for those from Pennsylvania, you might know her from Instagram or TikTok as Tory Talks Trails. Or you might have used her website to find a trail, mytrailsaremany.com. Tory is a hiker and backpacker based in Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. Not only does she create outdoorsy content introducing her followers and readers to amazing places in Pennsylvania and beyond, but she's also an advocate for constantly seeking out new things to do as an adult and to dismiss the idea that it's ever too late. As the theme is in many of our conversations, we discuss navigating life in the outdoors as a content creator and how to balance real life and the day job. Tory also offers some practical advice on how people can start their own hiking journey and shows us that you don't have to travel far from home to find great places to explore. This is the HiiKER podcast. I'm your host, Owen Hamilton, and this is my conversation with Tory Talks Trails. But do you want to tell me what you had for breakfast this morning?
Oh, that's okay. That's a good question. So normally I have a very organized routine of what I eat and everything. But this morning, as I told you before, it was a little off the rails. I snoozed my 5:10 alarm, or thought I snoozed it. Then I woke up at 7:40 and was like, oh no, I have to be at work in 20 minutes. So I had a banana and a protein shake, where normally I have more food because I like to work out in the morning. So I'll have like a Cliff Bar and a coffee when I wake up at like 5:30. And then I'll go work out, and then I'll have my protein shake, my banana, some oatmeal, like a whole bunch of things.
So are you a planner then? So you would have like, do you, I guess, I might relate in this way where like, do you plan your day out by your meals?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I'm the kind of person, like, I don't do 3 big meals. I'm sort of like first breakfast, second breakfast, like 11th is lunch and tea. Yeah, I really relate to Merry and Pippin. So,
and what's your favorite type of tater?
That's a good question. I have recently been very into Ruffles potato chips. Very good on trail. They're not very packable because they like get squished, but like nothing makes me happier than potato chips on trail.
Yeah, but that's when you have the excuse to just open the bag and just like pour it directly into your mouth.
Yes. Like how many calories and how much salt can I get right now?
That's it. It's your survival of the fittest, or survival of the whoever can swallow the most amount of Ruffle potato chips.
Yes. I actually recently posted a video that's just a lot of cut clips of me just eating like Ruffles, peanut M&Ms, a hoagie, like on trail. People need to know that it's a great sport because you can just eat while you do it, and you're encouraged to eat. So,
totally. Like I got into hiking myself just by accident. I just got into hiking because it was I was into surfing beforehand, and then got into hiking when the surf wasn't good. And then I stayed for the snacks. I stayed for the food. I stayed for the fact that I can go eat a full pizza to myself after a big day out hiking.
Yes, I very much relate to that.
So we dove straight in. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience? Who are you? Where are you from?
Sure. So my name is Tory. I talk about my hiking adventures on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. My handle is at Tory Talks Trails. So where I'm from is a little bit of an interesting question because as a as a kid, both as a kid and as an adult, I have moved a lot. So I'm currently located in Western Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh. So people might really only know that from our football team, the Steelers, and the fact that we have a lot of bridges and rivers. I think those are Pittsburgh's claim to fame. But Western Pennsylvania is actually a surprisingly awesome place to go hiking. And so I started my Instagram and my website. It's www.mytrailsaremany.com. When I moved to Pittsburgh a little over 2 years ago, and was sort of like, well, I need an activity and I don't really know anyone. And so I'm just going to start exploring. And I had gotten into hiking. We lived in Cleveland the year prior to living in Pittsburgh. And so I don't know if you remember in like 2021, 2020, there was this whole big pandemic happening. And so
I think I might remember that,
yeah, a little bit of a core memory there. And so I was spending a lot of time kind of outdoors, and my friend told me about this list, like it was like a bucket list of hikes in Cuyahoga Valley National Park in Ohio. And I had hit a period where I was in between jobs for 2 weeks, and I was like, okay, well, what do I do in January in Cleveland for 2 weeks when I like, and there was no vaccine at that point. So it was like, and I shouldn't really be interacting with people. So I took my dog, and every single day of my 2 weeks between jobs, we went and did a hike on the list. And I was kind of like, oh, this is cool. Like, I like doing this, and I like being, by myself with the dog in the woods. And I feel like that's what really started getting me super interested into hiking. Before we lived in Cleveland, we were in Southern California, and we adopted our dog. He is a lunatic. He had a lot of energy. And so I was just getting bored of like walking him around the same blocks all the time. So I started researching trails to go and take this dog to, expend some energy. So I'd sort of preliminarily got into hiking in Southern California, but didn't like really start loving it until Ohio. So
Right. Okay. And so like what then inspired you then to start the Instagram page or the blog, or what came first, and what then inspired you to start that?
Yeah, so I actually got injured. I think it was like I either tore some sort of muscle in my quad, or like something happened with my quad where I basically was in excruciating pain and couldn't walk. And so we had moved to Pittsburgh in August. This happened in late November, early December. So, you don't know a ton of people at that point. You don't really have a support network.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized like all of my hobbies were exercising, like going to the gym, going for a walk, going for a hike. I was a rower in college, so I was still rowing a lot. And I was like, I don't have any outlet really other than reading. I love reading, but other than reading, I didn't really have anything that was okay for me to do when I couldn't walk, basically. And so
Right.
I had a blog in college, like just very sort of like, this is my day and this is what I do. And it was really more of like a journal for me.
Back in
And
it was a Tumblr kind of era.
yeah, something like that, like a blog spot, I think it
Right.
was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, not to age myself here, but yeah, like one of those.
Don't worry
Um,
about it.
yeah. And so I had always liked doing that, and I had done a bunch of research about blogs, and I was just kind of like, I'm just gonna start it and see what happens. And I thought that part of starting a website was you also had to have social media. So I was like, okay, I'll do Instagram too. And then Instagram is actually what has really kind of taken off a lot more. And I've enjoyed, especially as Instagram has been pushing reels a lot more. Like I really enjoy creating the short. I still like writing a lot. I still try to, get a blog post out when I can. Ideally it would be like every 2 weeks, but sometimes we're a little behind. But I really like the short form video. I think it's just like a fun way to show your personality and like share knowledge that other people might not have. So
Yeah.
it's been a really interesting journey. I mean, it'll be 2 years. It'll be 2 years in about a month and a half, and it's been totally different than what I expected, but also like so much better, I think. I think I didn't expect the community aspect of it. I have met a lot of friends through
Yeah.
Instagram, which, I tell my parents that or something, and they're like, "You're meeting strangers from the internet." And it's like, no, I promise I'm not going to get murdered. So just like, it's just been different, but so awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy how like there's been a paradigm shift over the last, especially over the last 3 years with the pandemic, that these communities are you know they're being created and they're thriving online, sometimes only online,
Yeah.
and I don't mean like the digital native ones, which are like the gamers and the YouTubers and all that kind of stuff, but like even these outdoor communities, they kind of thrive in a digital world as well, and like you guys, and we would be an example of that too. So like it, there's a lot, I suppose there's a lot of time that goes into creating that kind of content, like creating reels, creating the blogs when you do have time to do that. How, like, do you, like, I assume you don't do, or we did speak before this, you don't do this for a living. Like what do you do
No.
for a living, and how do you find the balance?
Sure. So I think you just get used to the feeling of like, I feel like I'm never doing enough all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, part of that I think is just like when you're an oldest daughter who has perfectionist tendencies, like you just feel like that anyway. So you just get used to it. But I work full time as a project manager for a health insurance company here in Pittsburgh. I think part of what I'm able to do this a lot is I am pretty strict in my work boundaries. Like I really try not to work too late or work on the weekends. I try to be super efficient when I'm at work so that I'm, head down the whole time, just doing what I need to do so that I don't have to, stay on past 5 or 6 o'clock at night or work on a Saturday. I think also I work for a company that by US standards, I will not say by European standards, but by US standards gives it a decent amount of time off. So one of the trips I did this summer, I was able to, take a couple of days off combined with 4th of July weekend. And I went with a friend who is also a content creator, blogger, and we went to central Pennsylvania, and I think we did like 12 hikes in 5 days or something. And so it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hiking, but it was also a lot of like, okay, we're, creating a video and we're creating a guide for this region, because it's a really cool area to visit, and not that we think that not that many people know about it.
Right. And I guess you kind of set up another question for me there, where like when you are thinking about the next hike to go on, are you thinking about it in the lens of like, oh, this would be a cool place to get a piece of content from, or are you going, nah, that'd just be a cool place to go, or how do you plan out your next hike?
I think for me is what I don't want to do is like, I love hiking first and foremost. And so anytime I feel like, oh, I'm just doing this hike to get content, I really try to like roll it back and say like, no, okay, if I don't want to go hiking, I'm not going to go hiking. So I usually start with like, where do I want to go hiking? And also what time do I have? So because I work full time. A lot of my stuff is created on, like, I do a lot of hikes on weekends. So a lot of my stuff is very local, and that's why I write a lot about Western Pennsylvania, or areas that are easy to get to. So like, we're under 2 hours from Ohio. We're under 2 hours from West Virginia. I can drive 3 hours to central Pennsylvania, or like lower New York. So exploring areas where, if I'm going there for a weekend, I'm not spending 6 hours in the car. I'm spending 3 hours in the car, really maximizing my time. But I do a lot of local stuff. And so most of my following is located in Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania, or just Pennsylvania in general, because I think there's a conception that, like, in the US, obviously it's like, oh, Colorado, California, Montana, like these are all the places that everyone wants to go hike. But I don't think it's realistic to expect that people who like hiking can always get to those places. And so giving people the opportunity of like, hey, this really cool lake is 30 minutes from you, and you could go there for a day trip, rent a kayak, do a hike, and go home. Um, like, because like most people work a a regular job that's 40 to 60 hours a week, and a lot of people don't have time for some of those bigger trips. So really showing people, hey, like, you live in a beautiful region, you just have to do more research than you might otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I think there is a little bit of a trend, or should I say a debate going online with like East Coast versus West Coast.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
you
definitely.
you have like these memes that are coming out. I think it's more so up in like the Green Mountains, where you have like these West Coast guys coming over to the East Coast saying, "Oh, they're just hills," and like
Yeah.
they're gnarly mountains.
Yes, yes. And I think, like, I went to Colorado 2 summers ago, and I love Colorado. I love visiting there. It's awesome hiking there. It's super fun. But the trails that I was on, we did mostly day hiking on the Colorado Trail. It's like, they're very well blazed, they're pretty well maintained, and you get a lot, like, yeah, you're at elevation, you gain a lot of elevation. They're not I'm not going to tell anyone that they're easy hikes, but like, you get a lot of the switchbacks. And Western Pennsylvania, and from what I've heard about, the White Mountains and stuff, like, those don't exist. You're going up the cliff. And so it's just different. Like, yes, the mountains are smaller,
Yeah.
but when you're going up, you're really going up. So
Sounds like Wicklow. It sounds like Ireland and Scotland. To be honest, like
okay.
we do have trails, like well maintained trails here, but like for the most part, you are just going up the side of a hill, and
Yes.
yeah, especially in weather that we have like today. Tomorrow, the trails won't exist. Like, you will literally just be just going. I'm going up. That's my
Yes.
trail.
Yep. There's so I did a hiking challenge that's popular in this area. It's 37 or 38 miles in one day, and it's on this trail called the Rachel Carson Trail. And because the trail is like, it's north of Pittsburgh, it basically runs along, we have a river called the Allegheny River, and it kind of like is sort of 30 minutes north of the Allegheny River running along. For the whole trail, I think, is 45 miles. But a lot of the land, because it's like a more urban area, more developed, is easements, or like electrical line
Yeah,
passes.
yeah,
So you are like, if it's an easement, you have your 2 foot by 2 foot, like, going up the hill. And so some of those hills are very, very gnarly. Like, I think the elevation gain loss was like 7,000 feet over 38 miles in one day. And so I think they're like, the people here know the challenge, know the trail. And I would recommend it. Like, it was definitely something very hard, and a good test of, my ability to hike and, really stay mentally focused and tough. But I could see someone coming from a place, at altitude or used to bigger mountains where they're that would be kind of tough for them because they're not expecting that like super steep grade and up and down and like very rocky, sort of hilly.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So it
And,
was a
and,
good time.
and
I don't think I would do it. I don't think I would do it again. I say that now. Signups are in March. Who knows what will happen by then? But I don't know that. I don't know that I would do it again.
it kind of sounds like Barkley Marathons, like the Rat Jaw. I don't know if you've heard of Barkley Marathons.
No, I haven't.
Do yourself a favor. Like you look up YouTube Barkley Marathons. It's an ultra marathon, but it's like a three loop situation. I'm gonna butcher where it is. I have a feeling it's in Ohio,
Okay.
but it's crazy terrain. It's easements. It's a lot of easements, and it's going through like dense forests. There's more caveats to it as well. It's not just a run. There's like all sorts of mad stuff that goes on. But yeah, it just reminds me of that. And I took part in a race, and I'm also doing it again. I don't know why. In
Type
Ireland,
two, type
where
two fun. That's what it is, though. It's always
well,
type
this
two
is more
fun.
like type five fun.
Yeah.
It's like, it's bad. It's going to be bad, and I'm not sure if I'm going to feel good afterwards.
Yeah.
um, where it's like it's a ultra distance as well. It's like like 40 miles. But it's like self navigation, and it's like over mountains in the middle of the night, in the middle of January.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, but it's over very very similar terrain. Like I haven't actually been to Pennsylvania myself, but I like I've watched so many videos where I'm like, that looks like Wicklow, that looks like
Yeah,
our mountains. So I feel like I can relate a little bit.
I
Um,
believe it.
so with like it sounds like you've gone from like went out hiking, got really started to enjoy it, and in the middle of the pandemic, you just like went all in. You're like, this is my thing. I like hiking is my thing. What was your kind of evolution through that? Because it sounds like you're doing like crazy, like really tough hikes. Like, how did you go from like local like trails nearby to like these big challenge hikes? And I think you did the Laurel Highland Trail. Am I
Yes.
right in
Yep.
saying that?
Yep. I did that. I did that back in September. That was super fun as well. Yeah. So there was definitely an evolution to it. So my athletic background, I was a rower in college. So I was a
Yeah.
Division I rower. And then when I graduated college, I wanted to continue rowing, and basically the only way. Sorry.
It's all right. Don't worry. Oh, hello.
I just grabbed him to try to keep him away from the door. I think we've been getting some deliveries. But what I was saying is, so I was a Division I rower in college, and then I loved rowing. Like I loved rowing more than anything I'd ever done, and wanted to continue. And basically the only way to do that is to at this stage. I think it's more grown now where you can do it on sort of like a more chill level. But at the time, it felt like the only way to continue was to like basically try to make a national team. And so I moved to Philadelphia to join a club to try to like do the very competitive thing. There, I did that for probably 2.5 years. And part of the reason I love hiking, and I talk about how great hiking is as a sport because you get to eat, is I'm smaller. I'm like 5'6", and so everyone who knows rowers knows that like taller is better. You have a larger lever, and so I was in a category called lightweight rowing where I had to be basically average like 125.7 pounds or 57.5 kilograms with whoever I was in a boat with. And for my body type, like that's just like that was really a struggle, and that's why I ended up stopping, because I was like restricting food all the time, and I felt like I just didn't have any energy, and so I ended up stepping away from the like elite piece of that, and trying to make a national team. I do still row. I've rowed at like the masters level for a while, so that's you still compete, but you're in like age categories. It's a lot more chill. So I still do that when I can, and I still love that. But I think like it's one of those things where when you used to be pretty good, like I'm not going to say I was an amazing rower, but when you used to be pretty good at something, it's hard to, like when I got injured and still, almost 2 years later, I can't put in the time or training the way I wanted to, because it just hurts my back, and
Right.
like it just doesn't, I just can't train the way I used to. And so getting into hiking and then finding out like, oh, like I like racing, and there are hiking like competitions or things where you can really push yourself and find that level of like mental focus and fortitude,
Mm.
and like find your breaking point and pushing past it. Like that was something that I loved about rowing. And so to find that in something else that doesn't, I mean, obviously hiking 38 miles in one day is extremely painful. I was very sore for a long time, but it doesn't put me in a state where like I can't sleep because my back hurts. Um, so I think I've always been a pretty competitive person. And so that
Right.
as soon as one door closed, it was like I needed to find another door to open, to like put that time and energy.
Right.
And yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because, like, I think a lot of people can resonate with that. That the hiking has come at a time. Like, I think I don't know. I don't want to guess what age you are, or ask you how old you are. But I imagine you're kind of in the age bracket where, like, the becoming a professional athlete is a early 20s kind of person's game, and then like as you kind of grow older as a millennial or like young gen or old Gen Z, you're starting to go, okay, well that's not going to happen. What else is out there? And hiking generally kind of came at this moment in time for everybody during the pandemic, where it's like, oh, this is like, I can be competitive at this, but I also can just like really enjoy it and just like spend time with my friends. I can, like you can't really just go for a row with your friends really, like unless they also row at a
Yeah.
pretty high level.
No,
Or
it's definitely much more accessible, I think, to a much larger group of people. And I think one thing that intimidated me about hiking for a long time was like, oh, I thought I needed like the special boots and the special
yeah,
gear and the special hiking poles and all these things. And then once you kind of have someone who helps you get into it, and you're like, oh, like, no, I can wear my old college, like, zip up and my sneakers, and generally it's fine. Like, obviously, for harder trails, you need to be more prepared.
yeah.
When you're overnight, you have to be more prepared, but it's a lot easier of an entry than a lot of other sports, and especially rowing that has like the specialized equipment that has to be specially stored and is very expensive. And so it's just a lot easier to get into, I think.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, you can't just go for a row with like a raft and you know a broomstick. There's
Yeah.
no like
I
easy
mean,
version of going
you
for a
could
row.
do whatever you set your mind to. Will
True,
you be
true.
successful? Probably not.
No, yeah. There's definitely some sort of like row like 30 for 30 kind of like backstory of someone who actually did that. They like rode with a raft and a broomstick and became like a world champion.
Yep.
Um, but so and that was gonna I was gonna ask you about was kind of like your transition for, like through like getting the right gear and like so you would have just started like just wearing sneakers, wearing like your normal kind of like training gear
Yeah,
and
it's
like
funny. I look back at pictures of when I was like starting to hike in California, and I'm wearing like sneakers that I would wear to the gym that I
yeah.
went and got at Kohl's, and I'm wearing a lot of my old like collegiate rowing stuff because that's what I had. I have a like cloth backpack that had it rained, everything would have got soaked. I probably had one small water bottle, which is not smart because Southern California is very hot. And so I look back at some of these pictures of like what I'm wearing or what I brought, and I was like, oh, like it's a good thing that nothing went sideways, because like I definitely was not prepared enough. But it like if I had waited until I was kind of had everything I thought I needed, I don't know that I ever would have started. And
Yeah.
so I actually have a post on my website about like how to get gear for cheaper, because I think that like people think that, oh, I need all this money and all of these things. And like consignment is a huge thing. There's a store basically 2 blocks away from me in Pittsburgh that sells outdoor gears, which is very dangerous, but they have a consignment section. And so every time I go in, the consignment section is what I check first. And I got a pair of $15 hiking boots, and they're great. I don't wear them all the time. I prefer trail runners for hiking, but in the winter in Western Pennsylvania, like you kind of need the boots, and so they're great for that. And like I've had friends, because I think especially backpacking, right? Like you're like, okay, I need the sleeping bag and the sleeping pad and the tent and like all of these things that you would not necessarily have. Is I borrowed or rented a lot of it for my first trips, and so to have friends who are like, oh, I'm super into backpacking and I have all this extra gear and you're gonna go, and like you can borrow this and this, and don't forget to pack this, and to have people who have done it before is so helpful. Like I have learned so much from so many of my friends that have helped me get into it. So I appreciate and shout out to all of them. If you ever lent me gear, thank you.
Yeah, the community aspect of it is the strongest part. Like you won't learn more from the internet, like you can, or chat gpt, like you will not learn, because it will always tell you, like Google will send you an ad, Facebook, anything will always send you like, oh no, you need this
Everyone wants you to
backpack.
spend money. Yeah.
And even chat
And I
gpt
mean,
is like,
even like when I think about what I do on Instagram, every time I post like an affiliate link or something, I'm always like, I always try to disclaim it with like, do not buy this unless you need to. Do not buy this unless you plan to, because yeah, it would be great if every single person clicked on it and, you know, I got a little bit of money from that. It's I hate people spending money on things they don't need to spend money on, or don't like need at the time, or could rent or could try or could borrow. And I think like borrowing gear has helped me dial in my gear a lot more. So like my first backpacking trip, I used a sleeping pad that I would never sleep on right now, because I woke up every hour rotisserie chickening myself because I was so uncomfortable. And if I had thought that, oh, well, I've seen all these pictures of backpackers and this is the one that they have, and so I should get this one, I would have spent that money and I would have been miserable and been like, oh, well, backpacking's not for me. So I think really, you know, the try before you buy is real.
yeah, yeah. Maybe there is a something like that that exists out there, but an online kind of forum or platform where you can actually just go on and just buy it. Maybe that is something that exists. It certainly isn't something that exists over here. You have to buy everything on Depop, or like just buy it secondhand.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also like with backpacking, just learning what works for you, because what works for me is not necessarily what works for like my friend Dave, who is a guy, and you know, he sleeps hot and I sleep cold, and you know, he is okay on this type of sleeping pad, but I prefer this type of sleeping pad, and he can carry a heavier tent, but I like a lighter tent. And so I feel like every time I've gone out, and I've probably only gone backpacking 5 or 6 times at this point, but every time I go out, I learn something. And so what I try to do is like when I go out, I have a list of everything I want to pack. And then when I come back, I look at that list against what I used or what I liked or what I didn't like what I would and would not bring again. And so in that process, I've kind of like winnowed down my pack from probably about like 38 pounds to, depending on how much food I'm bringing, to around 32 to 28, depending on the day of the trip. So I think that piece of it as well is really, really useful and helpful. I think the like one of the things that I work on in my like real job is, process improvement. And so I think like applying a process improvement mindset to the backpacking and like, okay, I brought these 6 snacks, but I only ate these 4. So, and I didn't want the other 2. So like next time I'm not going to bring any of the other 2. And it's probably a level that like
You just
the
got like
casual backpacker, yeah, the casual backpacker is like, what is this spreadsheet and why are you doing this? But for me, like that's part of the process that is very
yeah.
fun. And I think also is sort of a carryover from lightweight rowing because like I was managing everything I ate and when I ate it and like exactly how many calories and how much protein and all of that. And so the food piece of backpacking, I mean, it's still a calculus of like, I need this many calories, only instead of like a reductive calculus, it's like okay, I need 5,000 calories on this day. And how am I going to get that without just like constantly chewing all day?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It's funny that you're saying this because again, another race I did earlier, like last month, um, my partner was just like, let's make a spreadsheet and we have every single crew stop. Like, this is how many calories are in this, how many calories are in this, and like, I'll send it to you. You will love it. But it,
I honestly probably would. Yeah. And what's interesting is like, because of restricting for so long, like my brain unfortunately just like knows how many calories are in a lot of things. So that
yeah,
makes it a lot easier when I'm packing for backpacking. I don't have to, look at the labels of everything or like do the math. It's like I kind of know. So that's very helpful for sure.
yeah, and but that is, I guess, like we have gone from like at the beginning of hiking and getting into it, but like that is, it's something you can get into if you want to. Like there's so many, like there's the ultralight kind of aspect of hiking as well, and backpacking, where people are like, they're like chopping their toothbrush in half to
Yeah.
like get their weight down. Like they sleep in cling film or like, shrink wrap tents. Like there's so many things that you can get into. But then like the planning of it is like, it's super super interesting. And like, obviously what we do, like we're like maps, just having a map in front of you, and like even a paper map in front of you, and just planning where you're going to go, knowing the distance, knowing the elevation, having that all written down on a notepad or on a spreadsheet, and like having like where you, it's just like
It's so fun. It's such a fun part of it. And when we did the Laurel Highlands, so I did it with two of my friends. And I had done pieces of it before, but I had never done the whole thing end to end. And that was my longest backpacking trip ever. And so like I did, I was doing all this research and figuring out, okay, like our water sources might be dry for the first 20 miles. So like we need to plan for a potential 20-mile water carry. And just like that aspect of it is so fun, but it's also, I mean, it's also a little terrifying because if you mess it up and you tell the group, okay, we're going to have a water source at mile 26 and there's no water source at mile 26, like that could be a problem. And then like solving for some of that is just what happens on trail. But I don't know. I mean, I love planning. Like I said, I'm a project manager, so like love the spreadsheets, love the Google Docs. Like here's our mileage for the day, and here's where we're gonna stay, and here's all the things we're gonna see on the route. Here's where we think we should stop for lunch. So that piece of it to me is like a fun part of the adventure as well.
it's like buying all your Christmas presents, like the shopping before Christmas. It can be stressful, but some people just love it. Just like going in, getting all your stuff done, ready for the big day. You're like, I put in the hour, I put in the work, I put in, but it's also fun to do as well.
Yes.
It's really really enjoyable. So the reason why I reached out to you in the first place, because I came by an Instagram live chat you were doing, I think last week, with
Yes.
Keystone Trail Alliance. Yeah, do you want to like explain like why were you on that call? What were you talking about with them in terms of trail work?
Yeah, sure. So Holly at the KTA had reached out to me. Just she saw a lot of the stuff I was posting on Instagram, and wanted to, just have a chat about like sort of what we've talked about. How did I get into hiking? How can other people get into hiking, especially beginners? And then also wanted to talk about volunteering. So one of the things that, like, since I've been getting more outdoorsy. Like I don't know that I would have ever called myself outdoorsy before like 3 years ago. I have you just like learn a lot more, and so I've learned a lot about like the principles of leave no trace and stay on the trail. Obviously, I mean everyone and their mom knows like don't leave trash, but I think it's also like your perception of like well, this banana peel will biodegrade, so like technically it's not trash, but then you learn, it's going to be there for a long time and it could impact the wildlife or it could attract bears or that sort of thing. Just like the evolution of learning a lot of that stuff has made me very interested in making sure that the things that I love to do today will still be here for people to do in 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. And so one of the things that I've tried to promote a lot through my Instagram is volunteer work. So there's a ton of amazing groups everywhere, but in Western Pennsylvania and in Pittsburgh, there's a lot of groups like picking up trash. So we have a group called Upstream Pittsburgh that focuses on like keeping trash out of streams because, we get a lot of rain here and our like water systems aren't really that great. And so a lot of the times it'll just like pick up a lot of trash on the hillside and put it in the stream. So there's always a ton of stream cleanups. There's a group called Allegheny Cleanways that works both on land and on water to remove mostly tires from illegal dumping sites. So that's like a thing in Western Pennsylvania and probably other places as well, is like there's just so much illegal tire dumping. And so, have volunteered with them. Like that is like hard work. If you want a workout when you're volunteering, that I was so sore for like 2 days. I consider myself a pretty fit person, but I was like dead the next day.
I just imagine you as like no normal like a gym person, just like just gonna flip the tires all the way down the hill.
Yeah, so it's actually super interesting. They because like I guess like if tires are like rolling and stuff, they could hurt people. So you do a daisy chain with people. So you're just the entire time you're just sort of like grabbing it from your right side and swinging it to your left side. So it was a lot of core work. So I have done a volunteer event with them before. They do really good work. And then like our local Pittsburgh park rangers, and then trying to set something up with the Keystone Trails Association to like do more trail work and maybe invasive species removal, something like that. And I think just like I think as a person with a platform, like however big or small it is, you have a responsibility to make sure that what you are doing is helpful and not hurtful. And so like if I can, work with Keystone Trails Association and put my name on an event and help promote it to the people that follow me, and we get 10 more people than we would have gotten if they had just promoted it, and then maybe 2 of those people decide they love trail maintenance, and then for the next 50 years they do trail maintenance, like that's incredible. Like that would be amazing. That's the dream. I do make some money from Instagram, but I think really like if I could leave any sort of impact from what I have been doing, getting more people into volunteering in the outdoors that's amazing. I would be like, okay, I'm fulfilled. We can go now.
It's like I'm trying to find the right metaphor for it, but it is like a turning point. Like I've seen so many people that like go out on trail. People listening in Ireland to this will know we have a thing called the 2-minute beach clean, and like at most of our like best beaches in the country, we have these trash claw things, the sticks.
Yeah, the grabbers.
And the grabbers, yeah, and then you get like a bag, and you're just encouraged to go out into the beach and just like pick up trash for your walk on the beach, and it's no different to your normal walk, except you're just if you see a piece of trash or rubbish, you're just picking it up and putting it in the bag and bringing it over to the trash can. And
yeah, that's awesome.
I think like just having something as simple as that on trails is so impactful, but then doing that in a community driven way as well is really I think that's a game changer when you actually organize, hey, we're all meeting at this point, we're gonna like clean this place up, and it just has such a profound effect on people. And I've spoken to people that have gotten into trail maintenance like 20 years ago, and it's what they do. That's how they spend their life. Their job is their job,
Hmm.
and they have, they do whatever. They're an accountant. They do whatever, but their life is trail maintenance, and they just like they live for it.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
I
I don't
think
know.
it's also like when you, I mean, for me, like I have worked a corporate job, I guess, for the last like 10 years, I would say. And when you, like a lot of the times what I work on, it's like I spend a day and I'm like, cool, I sent this many emails and like maybe I got stuff back, maybe I finished a PowerPoint, maybe I did an Excel sheet. But to look at a trail and say, okay, here's the before picture and it looked like trash, and here's the after picture, and like someone's gonna enjoy this, that just is very tangibly fulfilling. And I also like one of the questions that I didn't expect that I get a lot on Instagram, like usually through DM, is like, how do I meet people to go hiking? Or how do I meet people to go trail running? Or how do I meet people who are outdoorsy? And I mean, there's only so many. Like, I was originally kind of referring people to like, oh, this Facebook group in your area might be good. But I think everyone who's been new to a community and tried to join a Facebook group and been like, hey, I'm going to do this on this day, you get like 7 people that respond, but 5 of them can't go. And maybe one of them wants you to change the time and the other one wants you to change the location. And so then you're kind of like, oh, screw it, I'll just go by myself. Volunteering, I feel like, is such a good way to meet people like who are willing to get dirty and go outside. And if someone's doing trail maintenance, it probably means that they like trails. And so you can meet people that way and like it's almost like you don't have to go on that like first date kind of deal. Like
Yeah,
you have an activity, you're meeting
have an
people
icebreaker.
organically. Yeah, and then like they will probably be like the same kind of thing that you like. So I've actually met a lot of people in this area through volunteering, and that's been awesome. Like that's so fun.
Yeah, like nothing breaks the ice better than like picking up a dirty diaper off the
Yes.
side of the train. It's like, so what do you do later?
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. The diapers are the killer. Oh my gosh. We were in Italy for 3 weeks a couple of weeks ago. We did a bunch of hiking there, and just like some of the I was just like so depressed because normally I usually hike with my dog, and so I have the dog bags with me, and so I'll usually try, if it's not too disgusting of trash, I will try to pick it up and pack it out with me. But we obviously didn't have the dog, and so I didn't have my dog bags, and just some of the trash that I saw, like gross toilet paper, and like definitely saw a dirty diaper, and it's like, come on, like everyone knows better than this. Everyone knows better. And so to leave some of these places that are just so beautiful, like with trash, it makes my heart hurt.
It's
So
just lazy. It's just lazy.
yes.
And when you look up and you see the views, and you're just like, why? How did this happen? What happened to that person? Who hurt that person that day
Yes.
to just do that?
Yeah. And it's also like, I think people in Western Pennsylvania are, think, oh, like Western Pennsylvania, there's so much litter, there's so much trash. And maybe there's more here than there is other places. I mean, I've lived a decent amount of other places. I don't say that I would notice anything specifically different, but it's like, I hiked in California and people left dog bags on the trail, and I hike here and people are leaving candy bar wrappers on the trail, and I hiked in Italy and saw a diaper, and I hiked on Ben Nevis and I saw human feces. Like it's everywhere, and we just like all need to do a better job about it. And so I think like through through my platform, like I obviously want to educate people on that, but also like once you hike more and you're not someone who's just hiking like a couple times a year and only really popular trails, like you are going to learn more and you're going to understand more and you're going to want to give back more. So
For sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, look, it's been an awesome time chatting to you and like getting to know you and getting to hear your story. But I suppose before we say goodbye, do you have any advice for for anybody, and I suppose in particular women who are trying to get into the outdoors, get into hiking for the first time, and kind of don't know where to start. Like you did talk about go to a volunteer event, but is there anything else that you would advise?
I think especially for women, like, one of the questions that I always get is like, are you afraid when you're hiking on your own? And at first, definitely. And sometimes still definitely. And I think like starting small is really the best way to do it. I did some of my first solo hikes in like a local park where I knew I would have cell service, and I had been there before with other people, and I had done the trail that I was going to do solo. And I also, overpacked a whole bunch of things. Like, do I really need a 4-day first aid kit for like a 2-hour hike in a local park? Probably not, but I packed it anyway, just in case. So I think starting small, finding people who are in the community and can help you. One of my very good friends, her name is Ren. She lives in Colorado. I went backpacking with her one time, and I think I learned more in one overnight backpacking trip with her because she had done so much of it than I had in, 100 hours of reading blogs about like what to pack for backpacking. Because, when you have someone who has lived it and knows what they're doing, you're going to be able to learn a lot more from them than just trying to read it and ingest it yourself. So finding that community is super important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, community, I think, is the core message of all this, both from a getting into hiking, but also from giving back to the trail and giving back to hiking in general. Tory, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat and getting to know me, and for letting us get to know you. And hopefully we can see you on the trail sometime.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I always welcome anyone who has questions about anything. You can always send me a message. I might not respond right away, but I really try to respond to all my messages, or create videos about things that people ask me questions about. So I love meeting people, and I love hearing from people. So please message me at Tory Talk Trails.
That sounds like a project manager, a process flow. Is like, oh, someone's asked me a question, I'll just go create content about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do sometimes get stuck as a content creator, and I'll sit on my couch and be like, okay, I have an hour to create videos now. Like, what should I create a video about? And so I try to keep a list on my phone and all of these things. But a lot of times I'll just go back to DMs and see, oh, someone asked me what I ate on trail. So like, let me work on a video on that. And, I one thing I'm working on right now is, I had mentioned I did the Laurel Highlands Trail, back in September, and I got so many questions about that. And so I did a blog post on it, but I also want to sort of create a video vlog of every single day and sort of like what we did and how we did it. Because I got so many questions about it. And it's a 70-mile backpacking trail, and it's only like an hour and a half from a major metropolitan city of Pittsburgh. Like,
wow.
People have the opportunity, and it's so close. Like, if I can help them get out there, like, let's do it. And also, I mean, that trip was awesome, and just like everyone should know how ridiculous it was. So
amazing. Yeah, no, well, definitely going to be looking forward to checking that out when it comes out. But yeah, awesome. Tory, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll speak soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning into the HiiKER podcast, and thanks to Tory for joining us for that conversation. We'll be back next week with another conversation, and until then, happy trails.